it's Maya with Health Talks, brought to you by Let's Move TCI. On this episode, we have Matthew Doerner to talk about label reading and substitutions. Matthew, can you please tell us a bit about yourself?
Of course. So I'm classically trained as a chef. I spent most of my formative early years in kitchens, which comes with a whole host of different problems and health issues. So my inspiration to my health journey was realizing I had some health issues that at an early age I just couldn't accept as my reality. So from that, I did what I had to do. I did my research and started to look at what I was eating, what I was drinking, how I was moving, and that inspired me even more to pursue nutrition as a side job, basically, to my regular day-to-day. And I became certified as a nutritionist late last year.
Okay. So when I think about nutrition, there are a couple non-communicable diseases that we see that are quite prevalent here in the Turks and Caicos. We have diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol. What advice would you give to someone who's newly diagnosed and may feel scared?
Well, the first thing I would say is you're not your diagnosis. Yes, being diagnosed with a non-communicable disease is going to change aspects of your life, but it doesn't make you that disease. It is not your identity. And that your diagnosis is pretty much reversible through health and wellness. Even the worst cases of type 2 diabetes and hypertension can be reversed through using the gym as training, proper diet and lifestyle changes. Limiting alcohol is a great example. So it's a mentality shift more than it would be a physical shift, I would say. If you can mentally wrap your head around not being that victim of those diseases, then the sky is the limit. Nothing can stop you. The only thing that stops you is you.
Yeah. And sometimes when we get these diagnoses, it almost feels paralyzing for people and they feel stuck.
Oh, 100%. And what it comes with finding the right information about it is, I always suggest anybody that doesn't know something to consult your doctor. Consult somebody that has that knowledge. And if they don't have the knowledge, they more than likely can recommend somebody that does. Yeah. The internet can be a pretty vast cesspool of misinformation. I try to tell people it's best not to take people with PhD in their internet name seriously. Do your own research. Look for the studies. Try to find what they're telling you and see if it's actually factually correct.
So for people who want to take nutrition more seriously and want to combat their NCDs with nutrition, food labels are quite important. Can you break down how people can properly read food labels and what they should look out for and what they should stay away from?
Yeah, of course. For me, honestly, the first and most important thing in any food label is protein. Is it have adequate amount of protein? Case in point, a protein bar, as an example. 3 examples here, which are varying in their protein contents, but majority of people would choose probably Exhibit A as being the one that they would like the most.
Yeah.
But when you actually look at the labels and you break down what's inside it, you're having 9 grams protein for this bar, but you have 43 grams of carbohydrates. So you not actually have a protein bar, you have a cereal bar. Whereas when you move to something like the Builder's bar, you're actually having 20 grams of protein to, I believe it's 23 grams of carbohydrates.
So almost equal at that point.
Almost equal.
Whereas for here, the protein is almost 1/5 carbs.
So it's stuff like that that you need to pay attention to, specifically if you're looking for like a meal replacement or a snack to carry you between those meals, which these are perfect for. If if you're a breakfast, lunch, and dinner type of person and you're trying to fill the gap between one of your meals, a protein bar is a good supplement to add into your day, especially if you know you're going longer periods of time between feedings.
So you bring up meal replacements. What are some diet substitutions and alternative and like misconceptions within them that you see people resorting to?
Well, I would say first and foremost, your low carb concepts, your low fat concepts as well. It doesn't add any additional benefits per se. I wouldn't necessarily say inherently good or bad foods. I look at it just like what my professor had taught me, is I look at my calories like I look at my bank account. I have a budget every day, and there are calorically expensive foods and calorically non-expensive foods. And at the end of the day, my budget has to be balanced. If I go over my budget, then I'm gonna gain weight. But if I'm under my budget, I can lose weight.
Yeah.
Same as money. Spend too much than you make, you're in debt. Spend less than you make, you save some money.
Yeah.
So if you take it and look at it in that context, there is no inherently good or bad foods. There are foods that are more processed, which should be avoided because they provide a higher level of palatability, so with a very small level of satiety. So you can eat, and we're all guilty of it, you can sit down to a pack of Oreos, and before you know it, you've killed half the bag, and you're just like, well, I'm not full. So you still keep going. But then you've easily cruised through probably 12 to 1,300 calories by the time you've gotten through the bag. So it's very easy to overeat highly processed foods. And that's why you see issues in the United States with fast food places. Super highly palatable foods have very little nutritious benefit. They lack fiber, they lack high levels of protein, all of which are very good for satiety levels and help to trigger our hormones within us that say, okay, you know what, you're full. You don't need to eat anymore.
And at that point, they're just empty calories.
Yeah, after that, you're just going into empty calories, no different than drinking juice. And this is a thing I see very prevalent down here, is a lot of people drink, I would hazard a guess at 60% of their calories come from liquid varieties.
Okay. So you brought up juice. Can you show us how much, or explain to us how much sugar is in this?
Okay, I brought a tablespoon to help demonstrate it as well. So the total amount of carbohydrates in this entire bottle is 82 grams of carbohydrates, with the total sugars in it being 79 grams. The total added sugars, and that's the one thing to pay attention to, is the added sugar, because everything's gonna have a sugar element to it. Most items that we will consume will have sugar naturally involved in it. It's the added sugar that we should be aware of. And this has 74 grams of added sugar. So to see what 74 grams looks like, equivalent like with utilizing a tablespoon, so that people understand that this is how much sugar you're actually consuming in this bottle, is pretty remarkable. So there's one.
Because 74 sounds like a lot, but when you actually see it in one bottle.
4.
Oh, we're not even
there. So we're basically at 5 tablespoons worth of white sugar just in a single bottle.
And you could, and there are some people who drink this with every meal.
Yep.
And that's almost an entire cup of sugar. Like an entire one of those cups of sugar.
Yeah, if you would have probably factored out, you're probably about 3/4 of that.
Wow.
If you were to consume.
And what is the daily recommended amount of sugar that someone should have in a day?
To be honest, I don't know what the daily recommended would be. But I think if you limit, what you can do is limit it to its bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Sugar is unavoidable. Like I said, it's pretty much in everything.
Yeah.
So if you can limit your added sugars to 30 grams in a day, and that's being generous.
Yeah.
I
Because
think
that would leave you
would
at
be,
less than a half a bottle.
yeah, less than a half a bottle. And like I said, that's being generous with my recommendation. The less added sugar you can have, the better.
So we are a culture and a country that loves starchy food. We got fried chicken, mac and cheese, scalloped potatoes. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head.
Peas and rice.
Peas and rice. You see that everywhere.
Of course.
What are some alternatives or just swaps we can make in those foods that can make them healthier?
One thing that I do at home, or at least I try to do at home, is utilize an air fryer more. Because it will help to remove that excess grease that you get from frying. Alternatively to that, I would say baking.
Okay.
You can do a fried chicken or a variation of a fried chicken, but it can be a baked version, which is going to remove, again, some of that excess grease that's coming through the saturation part. That would be my solid recommendation. As for your starchy foods, supplementing your grains. Obviously, rice is a very, very huge cultural ingredient, but you can also supplement with a brown rice instead of using white rice, or instead of using the parboiled version of rice. The brown rice is great because it's unprocessed. It still contains its natural hull on the outside. It hasn't been broken down by any means. So it's gonna have a higher level of fiber to it because it hasn't been processed, which is a good aspect. And if you wanna cut rice out completely, which is gonna be tough for most people that are accustomed to eating it day in, day out, you can supplement to like a quinoa or a lentil even. Both very high in nutrients, very high in fiber, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, quinoa has all 9 essential amino acids that we don't make, our bodies don't make, that we actually have to pull from food. So quinoa is one of those ingredients that contains that on its own.
Okay. So for viewers who are watching this episode, I'm sure there has been now a spark to be healthier, to look into nutrition, to battle their NCDs. What are some simple ways they can start today or even tomorrow to ignite this nutrition and health journey?
Well, one thing I can say without a shadow of a doubt, start small.
Okay.
And build things up. Stack small habits week to week, day to day, to see big wins at the end of your journey. There's a big trend where people go, okay, you know what? I'm gonna get healthy this year. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna eat right. Then 30 days or less later, I was too hard. I quit. Don't quit. It's been scientifically shown that it takes 66 days for a habit to become so ingrained in our way of life that it doesn't feel like a habit any longer. From that, utilizing that momentum, where if you fall off, get back up on the horse. Don't quit. Because, again, like my professor had told me at one point, quitting has killed more dreams than failure ever could. And most people give up when they fail, or they feel like they failed. No, pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, get back on the horse. In terms of nutrition, I think the simplest fixes that you can do when starting out on your journey, change little aspects, reduce your carbohydrates, reduce your excess carbohydrates, let's put it that way. If you were to take a standard dinner plate, I would cut it in half and I would paint 50% of that plate with starchy leafy greens, like broccolis and kales, things that have large volume to them, good nutrients. And then I would take another quarter of that plate for lean protein.
Okay.
Chicken breasts, boneless, skinless chicken thighs are great. Chicken wings should be avoided because they are a higher level of fat to them. They're not the end of the world. You ain't gonna kill you if you consume them in moderation. But stick to your lean proteins. Keep red meat within your diet maybe once or twice a week at most, not an everyday thing. Fish is a great option for those that don't want to eat red meat or don't eat meat, period. Fish is a very, very good option. Same thing as salmon being a big, very popular one. I would limit salmon maybe to once or twice a week. It's very good fish, but it's also a very fatty fish.
Yeah. Another big thing here, especially in our younger population, is going out, having fun, and that most of the time includes alcohol. Could you touch on alcohol and what comes with that?
Well, alcohol goes back to being an empty calorie, basically. It provides little to no benefit in a nutrition standpoint. Your classic cocktail at a bar, let's just use a vodka soda or a vodka 7-Up Sprite as your basic cocktail, is going to be an average of 200 to 300 calories in one drink. But it's completely empty. The Sprite is going to add carbohydrates and sugar, but that alcohol has 0 proteins, it has 0 carbohydrates, it has 0 fat. It is literally a toxic substance that our bodies have to work very hard to eliminate.
Yeah.
It's very technical in the process of how our bodies actually metabolize alcohol, but to keep it very simple for you, our bodies are designed to burn off alcohol first because it registers it as a toxic substance. And that means if you are eating and drinking, your body is not prioritizing the food in your system for energy, it is prioritizing the alcohol so it can get rid of it. So if you say had a higher fat, higher carbohydrate meal while drinking, that will still be within your system and most often will be stored as fat.
Wow. I feel that is very informative for a lot of people here, and that's probably the first time they're going to hear that because it's such a culture to go Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we've got Sunday.
Yep.
And for the people who also go
Sunday becomes boat party day.
It does, and that's at that point that's more than half your week that you're putting that in your body and those empty calories, and then also factoring eating, and like you said, alcohol will get processed first, which leaves the rest get just stored as fat.
Yep. It's one of those things that, if anything, I would suggest limiting your alcohol, 1 to 2 drinks per week, if you can do it. I know a lot of the younger kids think going out and getting beyond recognition drunk is the way to do it, but it will catch up with you. And the older you get, you will start to see potentials for health issues. It opens up the door for cognitive issues. It opens up the door for cardiovascular disease.
Liver issues.
Liver issues is a huge one because our liver's going to have to work twice as hard just to remove that from our bodies. So it is not the greatest substance in the world.
No.
At all.
I think that is a perfect way to end this episode, as that's such an important message that people need to hear, especially the ones in my age group, not to call them out. So I'd like to just say thank you again for being on here for this amazing, very informative, much needed talk. And thank you to the viewers who are joining us today. Please don't forget to check out our superfoods and our Dirty 30.